one of the people that on whose shoulders we stand in unity. We have a lot of truth tellers that have spoken the words of truth since unity was founded back in the 1890s. And this series, we've talked about Charles Fillmore, we've talked about Myrtle Fillmore, we've talked about Emily Cady. Today we're going to talk about Catherine Ponder. And she's most well known. She's actually still alive. She lives out in California. And she's most well known for her writings on prosperity. And they're very powerful. I brought a copy of her most famous book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. I'm going to pass that around for you to see, to check out. Maybe you'll find it more interesting than my talk, and I won't take it personal. So, but it'll give you a look-see at what she has to offer, which is quite a bit. And that's one of the, she's probably in her 60s there. She wrote this book in 1962, so it's a little more than 50 years old. There's a copy of the cover that you'll see soon, the original. What we're going to talk about today is just a few of the chapters. She's got like 18 chapters or something. We're just going to go through the first 3 or 4. And she starts off with what she calls the law of laws. The law of laws of the core of the prosperity principles. It's embedded in the material world. It's embedded in our physical world. And it is one that you've heard of and know of, but you may not know it as a law of prosperity. And that is that what you radiate outward in your thoughts, feelings, mental pictures, and words, you attract into your life and affairs. So, some of us a few years ago got real excited about a movie called The Secret, right? This predates The Secret. This was truth before The Secret came out. The key to it is we don't start with the attraction part. We start with the mind-altering part. That part of us that we have unlimited control over. Ultimately, no one else has control over our minds. We're in charge of what we think and what we feel. And so the core of prosperity is to spend your time and energy focusing on what you want, on what is possible in your life. And when you do that, then your life begins to change, and the things you don't want fade out, and the things you do want come in. And Proverbs says, as a man thinketh within himself, so he is. We've known this for eons, but we don't necessarily have the steps clear to practice it. And so if you get clear on the steps to practice it, then your life begins to change over time. So Jesus talked about this over and over again. And he talked about the fact that if you sow a seed, then the thing that grows is from the seed that you sowed. So like produces like. It's what Catherine Ponder calls the law of giving and receiving. We have to give something in order to receive something. What we give is our thought energy into what we desire in our life. And that's where the growing begins. The way that I would language it is we have to connect to source. We have to make the choice to connect to source before source can pour down through us and show us the life that we've imagined for ourselves. So for many of us, this is a difficult process of getting to that place where you imagine what you want, what you'd like your life to look like, and then start bringing it in. It takes discipline to not get discouraged, to not try it for 2 days and then say, oh, that didn't work, so, I guess this thing's, not what it's cracked up to be. Consistent work, over and over and over again. You're conditioning your mind similar to training a dog. Just imagine your mind as a puppy, right? And you've got to train it. You've got to say the same thing over and over and over again until eventually your mind follows and your mind creates that thing that you've desired for your life. So this book is full of different affirmations. This is one of them. I am not discouraged. I am persistent. I go forward. I am determined to achieve success in God's own wonderful way for me. So let's all say that affirmation. And with affirmations, one of the things it's important to remember is not just to read the words, but to feel it in your body, to energize it in your body. So let's all say that one. I am not discouraged. I am persistent. I go forward. I am determined to achieve success in God's own wonderful way for me. Anybody feel different? Yeah, you can feel the activation. If you don't feel it, keep saying it. Keep working it until it activates within you the God sense that was placed there by your Creator. So, one of the things that Catherine Ponder talks about is the power to create. We have been given the power to create. God said in Genesis, let us make man in our own image. Well, what's the image of God? God is the creator. So God's given us that power, the power to create. Dominion. In Genesis they talk about the dominion over fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, the cattle over all the earth. We've, as humans, we've done that to the extent that our planet's probably pretty well strained and tapped out. But we've missed the fact that the dominion that we need most is over our minds, is to find that ability to control our minds, to create our lives, the world that we want in our life, and the world we want in the greater world. So Catherine Ponder says the mind establishes that connection between the formed world, this one right here, and the unformed world, the what I like to call the sea of possibilities, that expansiveness. If we, I won't ask Beverly to put the daily word affirmation back up, but it talked about the infinite source of being, right? That's what we're tapping into. Something that has no limits. Only our minds have the limits. So our job is to keep expanding our minds beyond whatever limits we've created for ourselves. So one of the popular sayings that's going around, it's actually one of my favorite sayings, is everything is created twice. First in our minds, then in the world. this is a spiritual truth. Everything's created twice. The chair you're sitting in, the clothes you're wearing, everything is first created by somebody imagining that it could be. And then it happens, right? They put together the energy to build toward that, and eventually, voila, there's a chair. It didn't just appear out of thin air. It appeared first in somebody's mind and then created it. Same thing for each of us. We can purposely create our life and create abundance because we can tap into an unlimited, inexhaustible supply. It doesn't matter if I tap into it and you come along to tap into it. My tapping into it doesn't limit your tapping. You know, everybody gets abundance. Everybody that wants it. Yeah, tapping into our mind. Yeah. So that's the key is that when we focus our mind energy on what kind of life we want, what kind of abundance, what kind of peace, then we begin to create that as we hold that vision. So what are you investing your mind energy in? Are you investing in more of what you want? Or are you investing in more of what you don't want? If you think about it, think about the last week. How much in the last week did you focus on what was going wrong, what you didn't like, what you're complaining about, how somebody did you wrong, etc., etc.? Or did you spend more time focusing on, wow, that guy just held the door for me, that was kind? You know, the things that you do want, the opportunities that came along that expanded your business, your heart, your love. Just take a mental inventory of, in the last week, am I investing in what I want or investing more in what I don't want? The world, the physical world, encourages us to invest in what we don't want. Complaining, tisk about the state of the world, or, what's going on in Washington or whatever. That's what they want us to focus on. Because when we focus on that, then we've given away our power. When we focus on what we want and start creating that, then we transform our world, we transform the world of the people within our sphere, we connect to people that are also transforming the world, and it changes. It just makes a whole different world when we focus on what we do want. So this next slide might irritate some of you, but I believe it's true. If you really want something, you're going to figure out how to make it happen. It's that single-mindedness of purpose that says, I'm doing this no matter what. There's going to be a way. God's going to put into my path everything I need to make this happen. Amen. And when we don't have that single-mindedness of purpose, then we've got a long list of reasons why, starting with our childhood. Which, why is our childhood still limiting us to what we want to do in our life? Let's get on with it. Get into our power. We didn't come from our parents. We came from God. We came from God. We have the power of God within us. Our parents were just the conduit to bring us into the world. So, Catherine Ponder also talked about magnetism, how we magnetize and bring to us whatever energy we're vibrating at. So this is probably the longest quote I have today, but she says, "I am an irresistible magnet with the power to attract unto myself everything that I divinely desire, according to the thoughts, feelings, and mental pictures I constantly entertain and radiate. I am the center of my universe. I have the power to create whatever I wish. I attract whatever I radiate. I attract whatever I mentally choose and accept. I begin choosing and mentally accepting the highest and best in life. I now choose and accept health, success, and happiness. I now choose lavish abundance for myself and for all mankind. This is a rich, friendly universe, and I dare to accept its riches, its hospitality, and to enjoy them now." How's that for an affirmation? Yeah. Yeah, take a picture of that.
How about that?
That is powerful. And as you say it, you grow in believing it, because you're training your mind to recognize the abundance that's all around us at all times. So the second law I'd like to talk about today that Catherine Ponder talked about is called, she calls the vacuum law of prosperity. Basically, the vacuum law of prosperity is this: if you want greater good, greater prosperity in your life, start forming a vacuum to receive it. In other words, get rid of what you don't want to make room for what you do want. Anybody done this before?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, it works. Yeah, if you got an old couch in your living room that you don't like, move it out. Let the trash man take it if it's that bad, right? And then just sit there and imagine what kind of couch you want. And then, all of a sudden, those of you that have worked this principle, somehow something shows up and it's like, wow, that's cool. I couldn't have imagined that, right? It's because you were hanging onto that old couch. Get rid of it. Do that with everything. And if you don't like your house, put it up for sale.
Yeah.
Create that vacuum, right? Get to the point where you trust the universe to take that next step, to meet you with your consciousness. Because let me tell you something. Our Creator has consciousness that's way beyond yours. I don't care who you are, right? Whatever you imagine, that's less than a drop in the ocean of what could be created for your life. For the rest of your life, you'll have a limited concept. So think big, because you can have the best couch in the world, or the best house in the world. Whatever you set your mind to and train your mind to manifest, you can do it. God put within each one of us the ability to create. So the vacuum law of prosperity, she also says, whenever you dare to form a vacuum, the substance of the universe then rushes in to fill that empty space. This applies on the spiritual, mental, and physical planes of life. It applies on all different levels. And we know this. All of the new, there's a shift in consciousness where all of this is coming into our collective awareness. And it's showing up in all kinds of places. We know this. It's leap and the net will appear.
Yeah.
That's the vacuum law of prosperity. Is step out there and it'll happen. I had to use this when I went from a family therapist at a substance abuse treatment center and chaplain and started my private practice in Fredericksburg. I had 0 clients. I stepped out, I said, I'm doing this. If I don't do this, I'll beat myself up for the rest of my life. I stepped out, and here's 2.5 years later, abundance. I've got everything I could imagine. So now my job is to imagine more. Right? What else do I want?
We can help you.
Yeah, exactly. And we can help each other. Yeah. Now, here's the trick. Her best statement of how you create a vacuum might be a stretch for some people, because she says to create a vacuum, forgiveness. Forgiveness is how you create a vacuum. Let it go. Let it go. Right? Here is a forgiveness technique that can form a vacuum for whatever good our life seems to need just now. And I'd invite you each to commit to doing this for at least a week, if not the next month, till I come back and talk in November. Sit for half an hour every day and mentally forgive everyone that you are out of harmony with, feel badly toward, or are concerned about. If you have accused anyone of injustice, if you have discussed anyone unkindly, if you have criticized or gossiped about anyone, if you are legally involved with anyone, mentally ask their forgiveness. Subconsciously, they will respond. In like manner, if you have accused yourself of failure or mistakes, forgive yourself. Forgiveness can form the vacuum that will undam your prosperity and success. Try it. Try it for a week. Try it for a month. 30 minutes a day. Everybody you can think of that you feel out of harmony with. Ask them for forgiveness in your mind. Not saying, come on, buddy, you should come and forgive. You need to ask me for forgiveness. No. You ask them for forgiveness. And see how that creates a vacuum. And then brings in God's substance into your life. So the last ones we're going to talk about, she puts into 3 points: the creative law of prosperity, the imaging law of prosperity, and prosperity law of command. And she's got it down as 3 things you do to manifest prosperity. First, you have a plan. Oh, I don't know about you, but I've had plans out the wazoo in my life of things that I want to do, or things imagined of how it's going to happen. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting focused on what it is, how it's going to happen. Write it down. Write it down with as much specificity as you can. And then continue to modify it as things come up. Some of you know that I'm planning next September to have a Consciousness Rising Love Festival in Culpeper. So as we're planning it, the things that we need just show up, just one step at a time. I was at a planning meeting with a couple of volunteers last week at Hyperion. We ended the meeting, I was talking to one of them. Somebody walked in the door and sat down at the next table. I looked over. It's a guy that has a massage studio in town that just opened a massage studio in Culpeper that we were going to ask to join into the event. Thank you, God. I mean, I didn't even have a chance to look up his phone number, and he's right there. Talk about manifesting. That's the kind of planning where you get it down and then start working it. And as you expand it, it just grows. The second part is the imaging part. And that is where, once you've created the vacuum, allow God to fill in that vacuum with a vision of what that looks like, of what your fulfillment looks like. The more you can image it, the more you get excited about it, and the energy of your passion is what strengthens that connection to the inexhaustible supply, and it just starts building. And thirdly is the prosperity law of command, and that is constantly affirming its perfect fulfillment. And that's where affirmations come in, where you say, I am so glad that Consciousness Rising Love Festival next September is such a huge success. It's already a success because I trust that God's going to bring in whatever we need to make it happen. It's already done. It's already willed because I'm connected to Source in a way that I'm drawing in all of the energy that's needed to make that a success. So one of the things that I forgot she said when I reread the book for this talk is this thing on page 60, which many of us really don't really think about, but prosperity is a planned result, just as a bridge or a building is a planned result. You can't have prosperity unless you plan it, unless you work it, unless you say, I'm going to bring in something that's never been there before. Just like a bridge or a building. This building didn't just appear out of thin air, right? Somebody planned it. Somebody put the energy in to make it happen. Just like this congregation. We all put in our energy to make this congregation happen. It just doesn't materialize out of thin air. So that's the creative law of prosperity with imaging law and command law. So one of the affirmations she has is one that she said when she was teaching prosperity, she found the students that she was teaching found this to be very powerful, and this will be what we'll meditate on, this affirmation that she put down. Everything and everybody prospers me now, and I prosper everything and everybody now. Reciprocity, right? So it's that giving out of prosperity and the receiving of prosperity.
I feel this is the perfect affirmation for Unity here to create what we want. And if we all would focus on this in this half hour that we already have planned to do and add this into it.
Yeah.
It's my suggestion. This is what we beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. What we can do is we can create the vacuum by spending time forgiving people, and then turn to this affirmation as a way for God to bring in that divine substance to create what we want. So let's get comfortable in our chairs. Let's quiet our minds down a little bit after all of that input of information. You're welcome to keep your eyes open if you want to focus on the affirmation on the screen. Just take a deep breath in and exhale, recognizing that the law of sowing and reaping, the law of laws, operates with our breath as well. unless we exhale, we can't inhale the oxygen we need. So quieting down, allowing our minds to take a pause, I'd invite you to drop down into your heart center, the temple of your heart, where your Creator waits. Your Creator waits for you to show up in the temple of your heart, to attend to the important things. Attend to your relationship with the Creator, who provides that inexhaustible supply. And as we move into the silence, allow your heart to speak to you. Allow that quiet voice inside of you to share with you the love and the connection that continues within you with every breath, with every heartbeat. Now slowly and gently bring your awareness back to the room, back to your body. Hear my voice. Register the words that I'm saying. Just gently from your heart space. Come back into the everyday world. Don't turn your face from the connection to your source, but bring it with you, with that knowledge that supply from the creative force of the universe. If our source can create galaxies, then our source can help us create any life we can imagine. Re-engage your sense of smell, your sense of touch, your sense of taste, and then finally your sense of sight. Gently opening your eyes, and we'll end with affirming with me the affirmation. Everything and everybody prospers me now, and I prosper everything and everybody now. Thank you all.